Live across the Great Lakes State, you're connected to Michigan's most widely listened to radio program, Michigan's Big Show, starring Michael Patrick Shields.
I'm producer Michael Leff.
I am world correspondent Nikki Hale.
This is meteorologist John McMurray.
I'm Rich Kincaid, covering the ballparks, stadiums, and arenas.
And I'm creative and technical director Dave Beagle.
Now, in the shadow of the Capitol Rotunda in Lansing, he's heard from the beaches of Lake Michigan, the shores of Lake Erie. Here's Michigan's Michael Patrick Shields.
I'm going to start calling you MP Shields. I was just thinking how great you were part of the team with JP, Arthie, and now you put a great team together, and it's great fun to just listen.
Hey, good morning, Michael. From one Patrick to another, good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
I'm lucky enough to find your show on 1110 WJML up here, and it was a nice surprise.
Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Tuesday to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields, radio stations across the state of Michigan. Thousands of union workers, and we'll talk with one in just a minute, are expected to march on the Michigan Capitol today as the State House of Representatives takes up the right to work bills. Those measures would prohibit unions from requiring private sector and government workers to join a union or pay union dues in order to have jobs. As many as 10,000 union workers from Michigan and outside Michigan, too, in the Midwest could join in the protest, and we will have full coverage right across the street from our AT&T studio right here. The governor is now on record after initially saying he was not interested in pursuing right to work. It was not on his agenda. He now says under freedom to work, which is what he calls it, they won't be forced to pay union dues if they don't want to, and they won't lose their jobs because of it. And if they want to pay union dues voluntarily, they will have the freedom to do that. Governor Snyder will join us next hour on this program. The House session starts at 10 a.m. this morning. Legislation will be taken up. Also, there could be some procedural moves to push the vote to the next session day. The Senate also starts their session at 10 a.m. this morning. They are not expected to vote today. The state police, though, are preparing for the 10,000 demonstrators to descend on the Capitol. They have already had all tours of the Capitol canceled today. Security officers are preparing from protesters all across the state. Riot gear available to the state police in Lansing in case it gets out of control. Officers say that more than a dozen undercover officers are going to be mingling through the crowds in case there's any trouble or any suspicious activities. The riot gear will only be used if needed. There is a line of the law and order, is what the state police inspector Gene Adamczyk has been saying to the media. They have a constitutional right to protest, but again, people have a right to be safe within the building. Riot gear seen on the floor in one of the rooms of the west end of the Capitol yesterday. And if the fire marshal says the number of people in the building goes over capacity, that's it. That's all you can do. They say they have no choice, and that number is right around 2,000 people. On Thursday, they reached capacity, went over capacity, in fact, when the UAW president Bob King and hundreds of others went into the Capitol. Police said they can't assure public safety because there were so many people in a concentrated area. So then they reopened the doors after a court order from an Ingham County judge. Adamczyk says this is the people's building. We support everyone's constitutional right to voice their opposition, but they don't want any damage to the building, and they certainly don't want anyone hurt. Streets around the Capitol here will be closed today in anticipation of those workers. Starting at 6 a.m., they shut down some of the streets, and parking will be almost impossible to find, at least on the street in downtown Lansing, in the state capital of Michigan. Lots of kids will be out of school today. Classes will not be in session because a lot of the teachers are coming here to the state capitol to protest, and they're using personal days to do so. As a result of Thursday, the Ingham County prosecutor Stuart Dunnings III is going to pursue felony resisting and obstructing charges against 8 protesters who tried to bust onto the Senate floor in response to the right to work legislation. That offense has a penalty of 2 years in prison. In fact, and Stuart Dunnings said during his time as prosecutor, he's never charged anyone with a criminal offense for protesting policy or a piece of legislation. However, they went through a human barricade of state troopers in order to gain access to the Senate chamber, and those tactics went beyond passive resistance. They involved physical aggression toward the police and those who were trying to protect people. About 100 union workers gathered outside a restaurant in Detroit yesterday where Governor Snyder was there to get an award. His motorcade arrived quickly, and the governor was never directly visible to the demonstrators, but they tried to peer into the windows. Most of the windows were covered with cardboard, and they were shouting slogans, "We are the 99%, hey, hey, ho, ho, Tricky Ricky has to go, hey, hey, ho, ho, right to work has to go," and so forth. And then also one of the chants was, "We're broke, we're hungry, we can't pay the rent. We must be a part of the 99%. So the governor faced that in Detroit yesterday, and then in his own neighborhood, in the Ann Arbor area, 35 opponents of the right-to-work legislation gathered outside his gated community at about 5:30 last night. They sang Christmas carols, but they changed the words in order to reflect their opinions on the right-to-work legislation and so forth. And that has always been a controversial issue, going into the neighborhood of an elected official. Most people consider to be out of bounds. Susan Demas in MLive also taking the governor to task yesterday, saying that for 2 years he steadfastly denied he was attempting to kill the unions in Michigan with the right-to-work legislation. I don't think he would say that he wants to kill the unions, but he is obviously now an advocate of the right-to-work legislation. She says in a single day last week, he did more than flip-flop on right-to-work. Rick Snyder undid the entire premise of his governorship: government transparency, data-driven decisions, and bipartisan cooperation, and she says that he should be ashamed of himself. The congressional delegation met yesterday with Governor Snyder to give their opinion. It was Senator Carl Levin was in from Washington, and he said, quote, "We were very, very direct. We are extremely blunt in terms of the importance of this issue." Also at the meeting were Congressman John Dingell, John Conyers, Sander Levin, Gary Peters, Hanson Clark, and Dan Kildee was there also, the incoming congressman. And the governor met yesterday with the president of the United States, who was in Detroit. So the governor had a busy day yesterday indeed. And the president, after riding apparently in a limousine from the airport to Detroit with the president, the governor got out of the car and went on with his day. But President Obama got in front of a crowd at a suburban Detroit auto facility and said this about the controversy over labor union rights in Michigan.
What we shouldn't be doing is trying to take away your rights to bargain for better wages and working conditions.
Now, Governor Snyder has vowed to sign the new law once it passes this week, and President Obama says he's against that law.
Right to work laws, they don't have to do with economics, they have everything to do with politics. What they're really talking about is giving you the right to work for less money.
President Obama said it was the auto industry that set the standard for relations between employers and unions.
You only have to look to Michigan, where workers were instrumental in reviving the auto industry, to see how unions have helped build not just a stronger middle class, but a stronger America.
There were protesters yesterday in Grand Rapids outside the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. Thereafter, Amway Air Dick DeVos, and there were about 50 people there also chanting and shouting and so forth. Now, a dozen nurses stood on the Capitol steps yesterday with red duct tape over their mouth. They say that getting rid of right to work would silence the voices of workers. We're going to talk with Senate Democratic leader Gretchen Whitmer, too, coming up shortly. She has been very outspoken against right to work and will be today. It's getting national attention across the United States, and our attention this morning here on radio stations across the state of Michigan and Fox 47 television on what will be an interesting, I'm not sure I'd call it lovely, but we're here in the middle of it on Tuesday.